Welcome to the SIWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're back here with Ghazala, and she wanted to share some of her newcomer experience, or I actually want to pick her brain in terms of like what was like coming here. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit of what that was. So what was the decision process before? So you talked in the previous episode about talking about with your husband on like starting a better life in a new country, and somehow Canada got your list. But like, how did you figure Toronto, and how did you make that decision before?
Okay, so we were, as I was talking about in the previous episode, that we were having this conversation. We want to like shift to a country, and then the first thing that came in mind was, say, Middle Eastern countries like the Gulf ones, Dubai and all. Because it's way closer to home, you can earn a lot of money and you can go back to your country and live with your family and enjoy. But then I have seen a couple of my friends doing that. And honestly, they get used to a certain lifestyle. And then when they come back to India, it's very difficult for their kids to kind of adjust to that kind of environment. So we were like, oh, we do not want to do that. If we want to really move out from here, we want to kind of permanently settle in a country and start a life there. So that's when we kind of explored politically in terms of quality of life and all of those things, what country would be the best. And that's where I think Canada was really topping the list in every category, right?
Cool.
So then we decided in Canada.
And then how did you decide Toronto specifically, or was there like a short list between cities?
Yeah, Toronto was always on the top because I was into finance, obviously, like banking and everything. And Toronto is like the financial hub of everything in Canada. And then my husband is into supply chain. So supply chain is also a lot in the GTA area. So that's how we decided. Like it was totally based on our career choices and how easier it would be to kind of settle down and things. So yeah.
Cool. So how did you prepare yourself for that experience? So you made a commitment. Okay, we're going to move during this time. What sort of preparation did you do? And in that preparation, what was like super helpful that you're so glad you did this, or like what was a total waste of time that we shouldn't even bother on doing that sort of stuff?
Oh, the first decision that we took was because we knew nothing about how to like move, what steps to take. We just knew that there was some program that we could start with, like the express entry thing. That's how we came as PRs here. And we knew nothing about it. So I just Googled, I was literally sitting in my office. I just Googled certain things. And then some agencies came up and I talked to a couple of agencies and I actually hired one because at that time I was like making money. Right now, no. So yeah. So I actually hired an agency, and that's something I think I really wasted my time and money on. I would not advise anyone to hire an agent. Let me be honest here. So I also made a YouTube video on this because when I actually went through the process, I realized that it was so easy. Like the Canadian PR application was really a step-by-step thing that you could do by yourself. So yeah, that was something I did. That was one of the first decisions that I made. And then getting the credential equivalency and all, that was quite time consuming, doing the no objection certificates, passports, and all of that. That was quite time consuming because the systems are so bureaucratic and you don't really know how to do all of that stuff when you haven't done it.
Sure.
And one very interesting thing was with our marriage certificate. So we had our marriage certificate, like we are Muslims. So our marriage certificate was like from a mosque, and it was not a court certificate, and it was obviously not admissible. And
Okay.
it was so yeah, and it was an experience for us as well because we knew nothing about it. So we actually then talked to a couple of people. We got a licensed marriage certificate for us. So yeah, all the document thing, that was quite time consuming.
Is there a place or a resource that you would recommend folks to find? Like, I don't know if there's a place online, or is it really just find a friend who's done it before and really pick their
Yeah,
brain and
the best honestly is to find a friend who has done it before. But yeah, at the same time, I would advise that I did a lot of research through the official websites,
right.
because there are a lot of forums there. They're talking about a lot of stuff, but everyone is saying their own things, and it gets so confusing when you're new in that pool and you don't know what's happening, right? So the best thing that I did, I think, was to go directly to the official IRCC websites and like the Canadian government website, and just kind of try to see things, how to do and what to do. And it was way simpler that way. Yeah.
Cool. So you book your flight and you have all the documents and all that sort of stuff. So you're on your way to Canada, but you're doing that in the middle of COVID, right? So walk us through kind of a bit of that experience, because I think you mentioned that you had to do like the 14 day quarantine. So when you had to like go and land in Pearson to kind of the first day of freedom after the 14 days, what was that period like?
Yeah, so it was not like, oh, book a flight and come here. No, it wasn't like that.
Okay.
Because because you are in the middle of pandemic, and you like there are so many travel restrictions coming up every single day. Like every day there is a new guideline that is coming up from Indian government, from Canadian government. You don't know what flight you can take, because at that time even the flights were like restricted. There
Right.
were only some specific flights that were coming and taking people for specific purposes. And since we had like a COPR, so it was easier for us to come. But like students and everyone was stranded at the airport. But the airport, a welcome thing was that the airport was so free of the normal populated that it is, like the Mumbai or Delhi airport. There are so many people all the time.
Right.
But when we came, it was quite nice, very less crowd. You could just quickly do your things. Everything was like sorted, and there were lines made for everything, proper social distancing and all. So that was good. And when we came to Toronto, everything was quite streamlined, honestly. So as soon as we came out of customs, we took a voluntary, what you call COVID test,
Mhm.
and then we came back. Like we booked an Airbnb, and we booked it right when we were in India. So we came to the Airbnb. We stayed there for like 14 days, which was mandatory. And then you're in new country. You can't even go out and buy groceries for yourself, which was huge. So then we tried to figure out what are the online sites. So there was something called as Instacart.
Mhm.
That's what we used when we came here. So we got some stuff from Walmart and things. And then, yeah. So, yeah, how that was it.
Cool. And what were the first couple of things that you did after those 14 days? Because it's a pandemic, so it's not really, I don't think they were in the full lockdown at that point. They're still a little bit open. Or,
Yes.
yeah. So were you able to do anything at all? Or what was kind of the
Yeah.
experience
So
after that?
the first thing that we did was to buy a SIM for us. Like we
Okay.
just bought one SIM first, because we really wanted to like start using at least internet, because
Right.
we didn't know right what was happening. And then after that we got our SIN numbers.
Mhm.
That was the second thing that we did. And as soon as the pandemic was over, uh, oh, I'm so sorry, not the pandemic, like the isolation, the 14 day, I so wish the pandemic
Yeah,
was
we all
over.
do.
So as soon as the isolation period was over, so we went to the bank, we opened our accounts. That was the thing that we did. Yeah.
That's cool. And what was the most surprising thing, or the first surprising thing that happened? So sure, you're out. I don't know, at the bank or elsewhere. Was there something that was unexpected during the first few months or first few weeks?
Oh, I wouldn't say unexpected, but yeah, so many things were like, oh wow, oh wow. So there were like a lot of wow things. The first wow thing was like, oh, this might sound cheesy, but it was like, oh wow, it's so cold outside, but the rooms are like heated.
And in India,
So
is that well? I guess it's the opposite. It's hot outside, and it never does it really ever get that cold? Like,
I'm sorry.
does it ever really get that cold where you grew up?
Yes, not this cold
Okay.
definitely, but like it goes to like 4 to 6 degrees.
Okay.
So not like that cold. But you know, there when it's cold outside, it's cold inside, because our homes are like built of cement and bricks, and
Right.
there are no heated systems inside.
Right.
So no furnace that you broke. So yeah.
Yeah, for the folks that are curious, before we were talking off air, my furnace wasn't working, so we have some technicians that are coming and fixing it later this week. But yeah, definitely the heat is something that you don't appreciate as much until you don't have it. But that's amazing. So you were here for a couple months, and when do you start the job seeking part? What is kind of the process there, or do you take some time for yourself to kind of get the lay of the land? And did you have any like friends or family that were here, or is it just completely on your own?
Oh, it was completely new. Like I knew no one when I came here. So I was literally figuring out things by myself. And the job search part I had started when I was already in India,
Okay.
because yeah, I had started talking to a couple of people, like going on LinkedIn and maybe doing some. Oh yes, one thing I forgot. So before when we actually started doing our PR process and everything, so there was something called as Planning for Canada,
Okay.
PFC.
Okay.
So it's an organization that's like funded by the Canadian government. So they actually guide people who are about to come as PR to Canada, and they tell how to do things, what to expect when you move there, and how to start with your job search and bridging programs and all of those things. So I got a lot of information from them, which was like a lot of help.
That's great.
So I started doing the things that they told me to do, and then I started with Access. It's like another very famous program here,
Hmm.
Access Employment Services. So I started taking a lot of their workshops and things. So that kind gave me an idea of what's happening around.
That's
So
great.
yeah.
And was the job search as you expected? Because you're still kind of in there. You have a temporary job in the meantime, but
Mhm.
like how has that experience been for you?
So job search was not at all how I expected it to be. It was the biggest shock that I had, honestly. So back at like my place back in India, it was I was in almost senior management grade, and then I thought I knew a lot of things, and I was really high up there, and people would be so happy to have me in their organization. Uh, but when I came here, and I realized that the job market is entirely different from how it is back there. Like back in India, it was more like you crack some written exams, you go through some interviews, and you just get it. Like it's like that. It's like a very streamlined process.
Mhm.
But in Canada, I found that the job market is very like interlinked. It's through people, it's through your network, through referrals, and how well you connect to people. You might not know, like even you can just go to a coffee shop and end up having your job there. So it's like that. That's what I figured out from here. So it's very, very different. And for me, honestly, it's been difficult. Like even now, it's so difficult to uh, be in a place where you had like a very good role, a good job, and then kind of coming here and starting from scratch, where you don't know where are you going to land in the next few years. I'm like really hopeful that I land in a good place. But lot of newcomers who come here, I've talked to a couple of people, and I know they're like, oh, why did we come here? Like, we were better off in our places. So, yeah, that's something.
And what would you say to that? Like kind of, well, you're kind of in the middle of it right now because you're not like
Hmm.
past the hump where you're like, yeah, I'm back to
Hmm.
my senior position back, but same
Right,
same level.
right.
What helps you get through it, or what are some of the things that you'd advise for folks in order to overcome it, or at least to move forward?
So two things that I figured out. I might not be exactly right at what I'm saying. You can maybe guide better. But two things that I figured out was one is not to have realistic expectations.
Mhm.
Because when you're in other countries and you kind of figure out, oh, you want to move to Canada, most of the people who are deciding to move to Canada are deciding based on the pictures that say they see on Facebook for their friends who already moved to Canada.
Right.
And those pictures are like standing in front of an Audi within 2 months of moving here. And no, honest to God, these are the things that people are influenced by. They think that there are dollars that are growing on trees and they can just come here and grab and start like a beautiful life here. But there are so many struggles that you have to go through while you start your life in a new country. So that's one thing. You have to have like realistic, informed expectations. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, I when I came here, I realized I have always been listening to this that, in Canada, people don't care what kind of job you're doing. Every job is the same. Even if you're a cleaner or if you're working at Tim Hortons, it's exactly the same as working in a bank. But it never got to me. But
Mm.
when I came here, I realized that this is actually true. Like, people still respect you even if you're working as a cleaner or if you're working as whatever. Like, every job is the same, every trade that you're doing is respectable. So that was something that I learned, that whatever job you're doing, just be good at it and learn from it. That's the only thing how you're going to go through this.
Yeah, I think that's amazing feedback because it is very competitive here. Where I
Mm,
mean, we don't have, I guess, as many written exams, and the process is not as streamlined. So there
true.
is quite a bit of emphasis on the network, right? Because they'll have
Never.
hundreds, thousands of people coming through for any jobs, and there's so many skilled people, right? So from India, from East Asia, from South America, from Africa, from Middle East, and Europe, and everywhere, right?
Like, you name
So
it, people are there.
exactly. So why you? And that's what a lot of folks don't understand. Where there are just as many qualified candidates out there as you. So it's about really articulating yourself, and sometimes that comes through randomly meeting someone for a cup of coffee, or in this case, I guess Zoom calls, because most folks can't
Uh,
actually go
mm,
out for coffee and things like that. But yeah, networking is important. And what I recommend folks to do from a networking perspective is to really build meaningful connections, right? Because nobody wants to be used, right? Nobody wants to feel like a transaction. So get to know this person and learn
mhm.
about them and see how you can add value to them. And then hopefully they know someone who knows someone that can help you find an opportunity, especially if they believe that you can. Right? Because if some random person comes up to you and that you never met and asks you for a referral or whatever, they might be nice enough to refer you, but chances are they won't because I'm staking my reputation. I'm staking my name on you. I don't even know who you are, right? We just met for on LinkedIn like a day ago, and you just sent 3 messages. So,
Right.
so understand kind of those expectations. But I think that's something that a lot of folks will go through, and it's a matter of thinking of, well, why are you here? Right? So for most folks, they want a better life for themselves, and not necessarily for themselves, for their kids. Is usually
Hmm.
what it amounts to. So as trying and as challenging as it might be, thinking about, well, how does what I'm doing right now help with that vision of a better life for my kids? Right? And if it is,
Sure.
well, then do it, right? So it might be that you need to put food on the table. So go work at a gas station, a grocery store, a restaurant, or whatever. Do whatever you need to, because that will get you something important, which is Canadian work experience, right? Because
True.
unfortunately, there's that the misconception that work experience elsewhere doesn't equate to Canadian work experience, right? So, and
True.
one thing I recommend is go find those organizations that already hire newcomers, right? Because they already know that folks from with experience abroad are valuable, right? And you'll be valued a little bit more there, and focus on that, right? And sometimes it's a bit about dumb luck, right? Sometimes you just need to bump into the right person, maybe at the grocery store, maybe at the whatever. Um, and sharing some insights could be of help. And there are tons of those newcomer organizations like you mentioned that can be quite helpful as well. So
That's
yeah,
true. Yeah.
we're hoping that you'll give us some good news in terms of the job hunt, and maybe we'll get into some more in-depth stuff in terms of like what have you learned about like resumes, interviews, and networking,
Yeah.
and kind of dive into that, because sometimes it's the nitty-gritty where you hear a lot of things, but sometimes it's those details that are like, oh, nobody told me that. What, why didn't anybody tell me that? So yeah, I think thanks so much for sharing your newcomer experience and walking us through kind of that decision and then landing here. And yeah, are there any other the stuff that you wish you knew earlier, or that you would share yourself maybe in September of last year? What might you, if you could slip yourself a note, what might you tell yourself?
Oh, so one thing about job search would definitely be if I would know that networking was actually that important. And especially the thing that you talked about, making meaningful making meaningful connections, because it's so important. Now I realize this because I was also doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, I guess, that I was just finding a job and then I was hunting people in that organization and just sending messages to them. Oh, this is my resume. Can you please review it for this job? And
Right.
later on, like after coming here, after doing a couple of workshops, and yours especially, I really liked how you did it and how you kind of gave analogies to making meaningful connections. So now I realize that, it's so true. You can't just go out to a person and ask them to refer you. They don't even know you, right?
Mhm.
So that's something I wish I knew earlier because definitely if I knew it earlier, it has already been like 5, 6 months. I would have connected with them so much better till now.
Yeah.
And maybe it would have been easier to go through. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
hopefully you will make those new connections in this kind of different way, and then hopefully we'll see the fruits of all the hard work that you're putting in over the next few weeks. So thanks so much, Ghazala, for joining us, and hopefully we'll get you back to talk about a little bit more about some of the other things that you mentioned in your introduction. So thanks a lot for joining us.
thank you for having me. It was fun. It was pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the SWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.